1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com, ESPN Radio. Joining us here, Paul Lukas, the uniform columnist for ESPN.com. And look, I am the self-proclaimed uniform nerd of the staff. I've got the hat of every baseball team, the multiple jerseys. I'm always on all these sites checking out uniforms. So Paul, you put out recently your list of NFL uniform changes for this season. I am absolutely fascinated by it. We find out that the Bills, it looks like, are going to wear the old throwback uniforms in week 1 with the buffalo on the helmet. What do you think about that right off the rip?
I love that throwback uniform. It's interesting because they don't have a home version of it. It's the standing red buffalo on the helmet, but they only have a white throwback jersey. So they're going to be wearing white at home for their season opener, their home opener. They're doing it as a salute to the 50th anniversary of the 64 and 65 AFL championship teams, which were the Bills. The Bills won those championships. And I love that design. It's always a little weird, though, when a team opens the season wearing a throwback. It's like, it's just an odd look. I'm not against it. It's just different. You know what I'm saying? There's
a lot of teams who have gone to this kind of combo between their throwback and their current uniforms. Look, we saw the Bills go to the white helmet, but with the more traditional Bill logo that they've had since the 90s. But
they
went
charging
back,
buffalo instead of the standing buffalo,
yep,
right?
They went back to the royal blue uniforms. What do you think about teams that have kind of mixed that tradition with their new look? Look, I'm a Mariners fan. The Mariners went back to their Sunday alternate uniforms this year. They added back the gold S from the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie years, but the current logo. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of teams in a lot of sports do really well when they do that. It's sort of like an updated classic. I think a great example of that is in baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays, and what they did about 3 years ago, and they went from being basically one of the worst-looking teams in baseball to one of the best, and they went back to the split inlined type font on their jerseys. They went back to their old logo, their old cap logo, but they put a sort of more modern spin on it. They updated that logo and that typeface, and it's, like I said, an updated classic. I think it looks really good, and I think that is a good approach for a lot of teams.
We also find out that the Giants are going to wear the blue jerseys and the white pants at home twice this year against the Redskins and against the Patriots. I'm not as big a fan of the white pants on the blue jerseys. What do you think?
The Giants are sort of weird in that regard. They're the only team in the league that has an alternate pant, and they normally wear the gray pants, of course, both home and road, but this is now the third year in a row, I believe, that they're going to be using the white pants as an alternate for 2 games. I actually like the white because I think the gray looks kind of dingy. The white looks a little snappier. The gray just sort of looks dirty. They wear it normally for every other game, all the other games, whether home or road. So I like the white. I think it's kind of a crisper look for them.
You've been critical of the Browns' new uniforms. I actually liked it. We emailed about it when we set this interview up. But if there's one team in the league, we'll take the Browns out of it. If there's one team in the league you'd like to see blow it up and start all over, who would it be? For me, it's the Titans.
There's a difference to me between what is the worst uniform in the league or the worst 2 or 3 and the ones that really need a makeover. To me, the worst team is Jacksonville, mainly because of that helmet, the two-tone helmet. I mean, it's
yes,
just
totally agree.
It's the worst helmet in NFL history. But they could do a lot of repair work on that uniform just by fixing the helmet. I think the teams that really need a makeover and like you say, blow it up and start over, probably Arizona. The Cardinals, that is just a mess over there. They've got those pants with the weird sort of spidery stripes down the side. They've got an old school helmet, the plain white helmet shell with a gray face mask, but the rest of the uniform is kind of a newfangled, modern looking look, so it doesn't really match of the old school helmet with the new school rest of the uniform. To me, that's a team that definitely needs to blow it up and start over. And what did you say? You said the Titans. Yeah, I think, the Titans have made a change this year, and that is that the Navy jersey, which had been their alternate, is now the primary, and the light blue, the sky blue, powder blue, whatever you want to call it, which had been the primary, that is now the alternate. And I think that's a simple upgrade for them because I think the Navy looks way better. So I'm looking forward to that. They could definitely use a little help on the helmet, the flaming thumbtack logo, as people like to call it. It looks kind of dated, feels very 90s. I don't know if I would blow them. I think they could handle some evolution rather than revolution on the design side.
One thing, and you wrote about it again when you put out this piece for ESPN about the uniform changes coming up. You mentioned Denver's going to wear the blue tops at points this season. I guess I just kind of missed. At what point did the blue tops stop being the Denver main jersey? At what point did they make that switch to the orange? Because when John Elway was winning Super Bowls, they were wearing navy, and I guess I just missed the whole transformation to that now being the alternate.
I believe this is the third season season where they just like I was talking about with the Titans, they flip-flopped the designations between the Navy and the Orange, where the Navy became the alternate and the Orange became the primary. A lot of people in Denver, still have close associations to that old Orange Crush era, and they still think of orange as the team's primary color, and a lot of people were really, really happy to see them go back to that.
I told you about my Seattle allegiances and my Mariners fandom. Tell me, I know they're wearing them in practice this season. Tell me the Seahawks, you don't think they're going to go back to the lime green jerseys at all this season?
I sure hope they're not going back to the lime green. And what you were just saying for fans who don't know, the Seahawks have been wearing the bright neon fluorescent lime green jerseys in practice. They did wear them for one game, one regular season game in, help me out here, was it 2009? 2009. And they lost that game, and supposedly they said, well, we'll never wear it again because we lost that game. But, that was like 6 years ago. I don't think those kind of superstitions really hold up for that long. I think there are a lot better reasons not to wear the lime green jerseys, aside from the fact that they lost the one game. Just that it's an eyesore, man. So I'm hoping they don't bring that back. To my knowledge, they have no plans to do that.
Well, it looks too soccerish. It looks too Seattle Sounderish, in my opinion. Now, we might be rivals because I know you're a 49er fan. What are the Niners doing with these all-black alternates? And they're going to wear them in Week 1? The Niners are a classic uniform.
I myself am a lifelong Niners fan ever since I was a little kid, and the Niners have had ups and downs during my lifetime. They won a lot of Super Bowls. They had a couple of really down years. There was a period when I was a kid when they were 2-14, 2 years in a row. But the one thing I could always take consolation in was that they always looked pretty good out on the field. They've always had good uniforms, and that is going to change on Week 1. The Niners, like every team, they use a different color for their quarterback jersey during practice. It's a non-contact color. Most teams use red to remind everybody hands off the quarterback. But, of course, the Niners jerseys are already red. So their quarterback no-contact jersey is black. And supposedly a lot of the players said, hey, that black jersey that the quarterback's wearing, that looks pretty good. Why don't we get ourselves a jersey that looks like that? And so they didn't just do a black jersey. They have black pants. So it's this solid blackout look, and honestly, it's just a disaster, man, because black is not a 49ers color. The whole trend of teams adding a black uniform just because they can peaked, in the late 90s into the early to mid 2000s. So they're way behind. It just feels like this Johnny-come-lately reflexive trend. What are you doing? It just doesn't work. They're going to start the season with it for their season opening game, which I believe is Monday night against the Vikings, and then they're going to wear it one more time in November. And fortunately, NFL rules limit a team to wearing its alternate only twice. So I'm going to find something else to do on those 2 days.
The Niners, a classic team changing uniforms. We see it a lot now in college where teams are changing up their uniforms that are classics. Now, Ohio State wore their traditional uniforms when they opened up against Virginia Tech, but we've seen the Buckeyes go to the different, more shiny metallic helmet with the different striping on it. What do you think about in college teams going away from tradition?
It is absolutely a free-for-all on the college level. I just mentioned that the NFL has this rule that you can only wear your alternate twice. There's no such rule in college. The NFL also has other rules, like you can only change your uniform once every 5 years. You can only have one basic helmet shell. None of that applies in the NCAA, so we see teams with 3, 4, 5, 6 different helmets. When I started writing about uniforms, college teams would change their uniforms maybe once a decade, and then it was once every 5 years, and now it's every year, and in a couple of cases it seems like every game. So there is the tradition argument that you just mentioned, but then, I think there is this established feel now to the college game where fans have come to expect a lot of change and turnover, and even the traditional-looking programs like Nebraska or Notre Dame or Michigan often will have one game, just the Shamrock Series game for Notre Dame, or this one game, I don't know if they have a name for it, for Nebraska, where they just sort of throw tradition out the window and put on a superhero costume, and that's what it usually looks like. And I think that is becoming the established norm in college.
Paul Lukas, uniform columnist for ESPN. Baseball now, again, baseball is my sport, and I told you I got the hats of every team. I want to know this. At what point and why did the vest get out of baseball in the late 90s and the early 2000s? Because I was a fan of it. Some of them I didn't like. I wasn't a huge fan of the Rockies when they had the vest, but I enjoyed the Devil Rays when they had them. I enjoyed the Mariners when they had them, and I enjoyed Cincinnati, who kept them a little longer than everybody else. Why did the vest go away?
The real simple reason is that people don't buy vests. And what drives so much uniform design now is what sells at retail. You know, when I was a kid, probably when you were a kid, I'm not sure how old you are, you couldn't go buy your favorite team's jersey because that market didn't yet exist. They didn't know that people would spend $200, $300 for what is essentially a polyester shirt. But now, that's an established revenue stream. And if something doesn't sell, for the most part, it doesn't stay out there on the field. And people don't buy vests for obvious reasons because, you got to coordinate it with some kind of undershirt or sweatshirt or T-shirt or whatever, and it's just not as obvious a thing for a fan to wear. And that is the real reason why you don't see vests on the field anymore.
I should have known it was that simple, but it's still disheartening to me. I was a huge fan of those Mariner vests in the mid and late 90s with that Ken Griffey Jr. would wear. It's Paul Lukas, uniform columnist for ESPN. Look, I could go on for a half an hour with this interview, but because it's just so fascinating to me. But we'll let you out of here. Thanks for being with us, Paul.
Thanks for having me on.